Alright, guys, this is Damadoc82. I'm here with my buddy Amp. Is it okay if I call you that?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. And we are going to be reviewing some of the designs for the Balls of Steel tournament here. So our aesthetic judges can, well, judge them. So, uh, how about you go ahead and pop one of them up there and we'll start looking it over.
I guess we'll just go alphabetic. So we'll
That's fine.
start with the Apocryphon, and I'll try to remember my alphabet from there. Hey, I even managed not to drop it on our heads. Not
That's
bad.
important. I just need to
And
pull up
then
the stream on my
off.
phone so I can monitor chat.
Okay.
What would be the best way to go
Oh,
about this?
he has a nice little cockpit in here.
There we go.
Two fire and control computers. Mine? Why is only one of the fire and control computers mine? I guess the other one must be yours.
Uh, maybe, but I'm not even on there.
You are now.
Yep. All right. Sorry about that. I had to make sure I could see chat on my phone.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay, so honestly, this is probably one of my favorites of the whole tournament right here. Very
Yeah,
nice aesthetic to it.
it's quite pretty. It's quite pretty.
Gotta love the steampunk look he's got going on with it.
Okay, I'm not the only one who gets steampunk vibes from it. Excellent.
Oh, come on.
I
How can you
mentioned
not with the
that.
gears? I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Well, so the gears, I noticed they're so when the turrets are aiming, they'll actually rotate with it. So like the big top gears up here, when the turrets are like basically aiming for vertical attitude,
Mm-hmm.
they'll rotate with it, and then like
Oh,
puffs
that's
of
cool.
steam come out of these vents when it fires. It's Mephistopheles always does a lot for his deco. It looks great.
How did it do in the tournament?
It did okay. I can actually pull up the results sheet and we can take a look at that. I
Good.
it
That'd be great.
just it struggled. I think mostly with the guns were vulnerable. They don't look like they're vulnerable, but because of the shape of the turret caps, it was really easy to penetrate into them and just completely disable them. So they had a lot of situations where the ship itself was durable and was doing fine, but the guns were just not functional anymore. Um, okay,
Yeah,
so
it
here's the
doesn't look
results
like there's
sheet.
a whole lot of armor for the guns.
There's not. That was one of the things I noticed when I went on.
One,
Yeah.
two, three. It'd be about 4 layers before you get to the squishy bits.
I mean, if you count incomplete blocks like the corners.
Mm-hmm.
So you've basically got like slopes and then heavy barrels and then you're in. And then from the sides, it's just crazy easy to penetrate. It's basically uh just so you've got one porthole, and then two 3 layer or two 3 meter beams, or a 2 meter slope, a porthole, and a 3 meter
Mm.
beam. Like there's just, and from the rear it's even worse. You've got like one layer of metal basically. So yeah, the guns kept getting blown up, which is a shame because his armor down below decks isn't terrible. It's still really only 2 layers of metal, which is not enough. That's basically one shot for a lot of these. But it went 0-3 unfortunately.
Mm. Well, that's the thing about a lot of aesthetic builds. They look fantastic, but they just can't stand up to
To
the
firepower.
yes.
Yeah,
Trying to strike that balance is really hard to do.
it is. It's I do art builds for like Iridian 3D craft, but their
Hmm.
shape and the weapons they use lend themselves well to being defensive as well, if that makes sense.
We just have to
I
look at his
think
shells here. Looks like he
they
went
were
with,
decent shells.
yeah, they're like 8-inch APHE.
Yep, exactly. They've got a couple solid bodies which will impact the reload speed. They'll slow it down a little
Hmm.
bit, but they wanted the extra kinetic damage. They have enough for what is that like? I guess that's really only 1.5 at best
Uh,
beams of metal, isn't it?
Something like that.
You know, I remember it having better stats than that. That's interesting. That's not. That's actually one of the weaker shells in the tournament, I'd say. It's got a decent HE payload though. With this, I think I would have saved. I don't think I would have used the penetration depth fuse on it. I don't think it's needed. I mean, it's what is it going to overpen with 2,000 kinetic damage
Hmm.
against armor or against metal?
Yeah, that wouldn't even get you through 2 beams, I think.
Yeah, it's like 1.5. And he's got pure HE on the 3.7s, and the casemates. I think they swapped out to. I think they're using like a. Oh, this is the first version of it. Okay, right. This isn't. So he got up to version 3 with revisions, and I think one of the last things was to change the casemates to hollow point frag,
Hmm.
because casemates, I decided, since a lot of people used a lot of casemates, I was like, okay, you can have frag in those. It's fine. They're 100 millimeter. It's not gonna win you the tournament.
Got the internals laid up pretty nicely here from what I'm seeing.
It's super clean, isn't it? I really like this. One of the things when I went in here and was playing around with the design a little bit to see how I would try to help it compete better.
Hmm.
They have a super clean looking aesthetic internally. Um, they've got lots of nice compartments. They even have, I think it's towards the rear where the engine is.
Hmm.
They've got like a little compartment with the coal stacks for
Yeah,
material
I saw
storage.
that.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, it's really nice.
I'm having a
It's
look
really
at her inner
nice.
bits right now. Oh.
It's roomy. Their ammo's done the right way so that it won't chain react. I love that they painted their engine gold, and it's a nice, compact, well-designed engine too. Plenty of power. Oh yeah, this was the version where I helped them out with the thrust vectoring though. The first time it had a problem where it nosed down and became a
Hmm.
submarine, so I gave it pitch vectoring using ACBs so that it doesn't do that anymore.
I thought it was kind of odd that he hit the casemates like he did, though.
Apparently they function perfectly fine behind one layer of armor. They can shoot through it. So
Yeah.
this, I guess, is like the proper way to do the casemates, if we're going to be honest. If you want them to survive longer, I guess. Um, I didn't even notice he had these steam vent decos going down the deck. Oh, that's super cool. They're like little tie-ons. Oh, I didn't even notice that. How many times have I seen this thing and I didn't notice that? That's so neat.
What is it you're talking about?
He's got so along the railings, he's got steam vents, and
Oh.
they look like tie-ons, like you'd hitch up to a dock with.
Hmm.
It's actually a really good use of that because it looks simultaneously steampunkish and also functional. I like that a lot. You got another one with a swept prow here too. It's not as aggressive as some of the others in the tournament, but it is very pretty. Little small icebreaker. Playing with the turrets a little bit.
I'm just looking around.
Yeah.
I
I also really like the rangefinders he has
Hmm.
up top. Those are gorgeous.
Yes.
It's a great looking ship. Like, this is definitely one of my favorites. Oh,
Yeah.
and of course the adjustable, rotatable torpedo gantries on the bottom that surprised the heck out of us.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
They get a solid what, like 30, 40 almost degrees of rotation. That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
freaking cool.
Needs more DACA.
Hey,
A
Ian,
little
how's it
bit.
going?
Not too bad. How are you guys doing?
Pretty well, thank you.
We're reviewing some of the ships for the Balls of Steel tournament, so that way the aesthetic judges can, well, judge them. So,
Oh,
Um,
this is clever.
that's
Did you notice the visual? These are visual cameras up here that he's got
mm-hmm.
on the top of the masts. He's got the cable running between visual cameras.
Oh,
That's
okay.
so clever.
Yeah. Sorry, Ian, were you trying to say something there?
I was, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Um, yeah, that's kind of why I dropped in. I didn't know that we were decorating our hydrofoils today.
Yeah, I forgot to change that. My bad.
I thought I'd drop in and let you know that, yeah, the title was wrong.
Anyway, how are you doing?
Not too bad. Still a bit sleepy, but I think that's going to be perpetual today.
Coffee.
Nah, very bad night, then up early for work.
Ah,
And it's like, yeah. But yeah, don't let me derail your review, guys. Please, go ahead.
Okay.
sounds
Um,
good.
is that everything that we wanted to cover here?
Yeah, I think between the two of us, we've probably gotten a pretty good overview of it. We
Okay.
can go ahead and take a look at the next one. I guess the other thing is the most obvious. The cage masts are beautiful and extremely time consuming.
Yeah, you would never catch me doing that.
Yeah.
I got
All
one
right.
from J Dog I just keep reusing.
Exactly.
I don't got the time
All
or
right.
patience to do that crap. Anyway, yeah, go ahead the next one.
Can do. And then let's get rid of this starter raft too, just in case it's causing us any lag. So, let's see.
Who's
It
next?
sure would be nice if things were sorted. Oh, I can sort them alphabetically. Oh man, what a nice little feature. Okay. So the next one, I guess alphabetically would be Bargerette, which is my ugly little pony.
It's really interesting what you did with the bow here.
Yeah. Interesting is a word for it. Ran out of volume is another word for it. Ran out of volume is perhaps a more appropriate word for it. I had fun with the kind of midship crewish area. I gave it a little bit of love, and the turret caps don't look awful, but this thing was not meant for aesthetics. It was basically just meant to be a punching bag for people to blow up in the tournament, and that's kind of exactly how it went down. It served the purpose of taking a beating pretty well, I think. In terms of silhouette, it looks like a bathtub ship, like one of those little plastic toys.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a rounded popsicle stick. So not particularly pretty. The internals are typical for my builds. Functional, not particularly pretty.
Well, sometimes functional is all you need.
It sure worked pretty well on the Shachankan.
What's with the spin block on this front turret here? What's
Spin
that do?
block on front turret.
Well, it looks like some kind of a turret. I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, it's the missile pod.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you look inside it, it has an ACB down on the bottom that will rotate that spin block. So if we go ahead and test that spin block, it'll open up the
Very
torpedo bay
nice.
or the missile bay. Yeah,
Okay.
same deal on the one in the rear. Yeah, they provide a little bit of extra armor for the missiles. Plus, it looks nice, so, you know. And this one is actually kind of interesting. If you look at the deck armor, there's gaps on the sides and the front where the armor for the turret cap itself dips down. That way, this is actually a 2-axis turret. It can actually aim up and down a little bit so that it can get the missiles on the target better.
Okay.
So little tricks like that. But yeah, you know, there's not too much to talk about this one. It's not hideous, but it's not really pretty either. I've seen worse. I have certainly seen a lot better.
Looks like you're missing a bit of processing power.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Were you just hitting the material limit, or what was going on with that?
So, I do a thing where ACBs, or not ACBs, local weapon controllers, you can use as part of your AI Tetris, right? And you can actually use them to extend how much processing power the AI has away from the AI itself and kind of decentralize things. I tend to take that to a slightly different logical extreme. If you look at some of the remote detections, so let's say up here where there's the coincidence rangefinder, if you look at that, it has 100% efficiency because its AI and resources are built into it. So it has a separate AI mainframe to power it.
Okay.
So most of the detections are not lacking in efficiency, but the main one is overloaded, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So there's also some visual rangefinders up in the kind of crew tower up deck, and they are not lacking in processing power. It just kind of depends on where I can fit things, especially when there's no EMP to worry about. All AI on a craft share detections instantaneously and flawlessly, automatically, so you can just, if you don't have space to do anything proper, you can just drop an AI in and it's 2 free processing power in 1 block. So it's a little bit more space efficient, but it's less cost efficient, if that makes sense. So that's why. My builds also tend to have a lot of freaking AIs in the menu, man.
I see what
Do
you
we
mean.
want to... Yeah. I think this one has 3 or 4. Because there's also AIs in some of the rangefinder or in some of the turrets themselves.
Okay. Were you wanting to move on there?
Yeah, I think so. There's not too much to look at with this one.
Okay.
There are definitely much prettier entries to spend time on. This was just meant to be a beaten up punching bag for folks. Alright, so the next ones are going to be some of my favorites. They're the Vanna. Should be popping in here in just a second. There we are. Off, please.
Takes a
You
little
too.
while, doesn't it?
Yeah, off. Stop moving.
Maybe they got some ACBs that are setting it back to its default
Yeah,
setting.
I think Mew might have added some. That's fine. I can anchor to one in build mode and we could check it out that way.
Okay.
This is their updated version for the free-for-all. So it's got the new target prioritization chip. Should be interesting to see what they ended up doing with that.
Just realized I didn't have my stream music up. There we go. Like, there's something missing from this. I can't put my finger on what.
It seems quiet. Even with me rambling on, it's quiet. I lifted one out of the water if you want to hop onto it and take a look.
Okie dokie.
Oh, I remember those guys.
They're cool. I really like these.
They certainly went the distance, if I recall.
Yes, yeah, they had a really good run. They had a really good run, and they're using this whole border-wise kind of deck cram concept, which I absolutely loved. Minimum shell speed, big arcing fire.
Yeah, I went for a firepower, not so as much armor, as I recall too.
Uh, they did not realize a couple of things. They thought 2 entries meant they could have 2 ships, and they didn't notice the volume limit. So we ended up. I spent a lot of time working with them, and they spent a lot of time working with their ship for the first entry, trying to make sure that they met the volume limit and everything. But they got there. They got there. The interior looks very similar to mine, and I appreciate that. I love all the volume saving measures. But yeah, they're thin armor, lots of harpoons, lots of rams. I question this ram on rubber thing. It irks me every time, man.
Well, yeah, one HE round and that's all gone.
The lack of durability bugs me, but also just if the ram pops off, you've got rubber contacting your enemy ship, and rubber won't do collision damage as the other Vanna sails off into the sunset. Boy, that one's gonna be. I'm glad I'm gonna have an AI menu to despawn that one because it's very gone. I think it's almost at the point where it's gonna despawn visually. Simple aesthetic, but just one that I really appreciate on these. It's I kept calling it a little Greek trireme, which technically not right, but
It definitely has that look and feel to it, though.
it does. It really does. Right down to wanting to get in and ram. I mean, a lot of those old Roman ships were meant to ram. So it's I just loved watching. So for me, a big part of aesthetics is also like how they fight and how they perform, and I think these were the most interesting craft to watch in the tournament. The behaviors that they went through, the tight circles, the rams, the emergency cuddles where they decided to hug each other for comfort. It was just it's all around fantastic to watch.
How far did this get into the tournament again?
So the Vanna did very well. They basically, I believe, went 4-2. So they got very, very far into the tournament. Let's see, which round was it that they got knocked out of? So the D13s made it all the way up to the Varangian Guard in the
That was your
losers'
other
heats.
entry, wasn't it?
The Varangian Guard was Cringes.
Ah, my bad. Okay.
Yeah, no, I spent a lot of time helping them, but that was Cringe's brainchild.
Okay.
So yeah, they basically made it almost to the finals. They were one match away from making it to the finals and then the grand finals.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say, I guess that makes them the third best, maybe fourth best performing ship. It would be, I guess they would be tied for third best performing ship with the ugly battle boat.
Mm-hmm.
I love the paddle wheels. Just
Yeah, that
absolute.
thing's just going nuts.
Exactly. I was just about to call it a little coked up hamster in there, but should we take a look at the next one?
If you feel comfortable with moving on, sure, let's do it.
Sounds good to me. I love the aesthetic on these. A little bit simple too. But it's my kind of simple. They've got a really good shape. All right, so let's see who would be next. Howling Gull. All right. Turn you off.
Now, whose entry was this again?
This was fish.
Okay.
Ooh. They have that nice kind of Onyx Watch vibe going on.
Especially the way he's got the cannon set up.
The cannons, the bridge, which is actually rather nice. You got a little rear viewing port. You can see out from the front. You've got a chair. You're committed to serve for eternity because there's no way out. Also appreciated.
I hear little Kari in the chat. How you doing, little Kari?
Doing pretty well, you guys.
We
Well,
are
thank you.
reviewing the ships from the Balls of Steel tournament for our aesthetic judges. Anyway,
This one's also a little bit of a bathtub toy boat shape to it, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Also, it does not want to turn off as well. I think that probably means that in the AI, reverse is not enabled. Either that or the shaft back here is just 100% direct drive and never turns off. I think it's actually probably that
Yeah,
last
it
one.
is.
It is. So
Yeah.
I can fix that. Hey, it knows how to stop now.
Would you know what the deal is with these? Oh, okay, never mind. I was looking at these local Walkman controllers that are exposed in the turrets here. Like, what the heck are these things?
Oh, they're for the missiles.
Yeah, I see that now.
Yeah, he has the really cool decoed over missiles in the sides of the turret that can also aim vertically, which is really nice.
Very clever.
Yes. Yeah, getting them on the turrets and getting them up away from the water and then allowing them to rotate vertically freely meant that his missiles very, very regularly connected.
Mm-hmm. Looked like you went a little crazy on materials back here.
Yeah, it definitely has kind of the fish has really clean interiors too. Lots of empty space. But yeah, they definitely had a lot of redundant mats, which is I feel like a lot of people in this tournament, with how much firepower there was and how the ships were not necessarily durable, it does really feel like people could have gotten away with a lot less mats, a little bit more ammo. Oh, right. They said it was also for the campaign, though. I remember now.
So it's a campaign conversion, I see.
Yeah, they wanted to be able to use this ship in the campaign, so you can see that their AI is EMP insulated in here too.
Mm-hmm.
Though, there's actually a better technique, but that involves
And then they said they got their mortars up and running too, which is good.
Lokari, you're coming in a little soft again there, sir.
I was just turning them up.
Well, I did just wake up, so.
Okay.
No worries.
But yeah, there's actually a better method they could use for EMP protection. That's using heavy armor and surge protectors that's connected to said heavy armor.
Yeah, you do.
I've seen this method, yeah, where you kind of have a network for them to go through.
Yeah,
Yeah, for some reason,
I'm familiar
heavy
with it.
armor, For some reason,
Conduits.
heavy armor is extremely conductive for EMP.
yes. It used to be vulnerable to EMP too, but now it is not.
It was so good at soaking it up, that's why people never use surge protectors.
Yeah, you could just drop a whole bunch of heavy armor. It also kind of made EMP big enough. EMP jolts would also just strip heavy armor blocks away, which felt weird.
Well, technically, the conductivity of heavy armor is a leftover component for that.
Yeah.
So I guess they chose to keep it in there.
It's interesting being able to use conduits to route the EMP away. It has kind of made it easier to make ships more or less completely EMP immune. So it would be nice if they had some kind of I've spoken about it once or twice before, but reworking it so that it has kind of a temporary disabling effect, and a bit of an AoE where the jolts pass by, if that makes sense. So temporarily disable detections. If it's a strong enough jolt close enough, it can still fry them or what have you. It would just be nice to rework it a little bit less from all or nothing and into something that feels consequential all the time in a way that isn't just binary. You win, or it does nothing. Because it's a shame. It's one of the coolest damaging effects I think I've ever seen in a video game. Like, as far as a concept goes, it's kind of really, really cool. But execution-wise, it can be really underwhelming or really annoying sometimes.
I could see that. All right. Anything else we want to discuss about this guy before we move on?
I like the way he's got a little handle underneath it for the keel, the lead keel there.
Yes, I saw that too.
It's a nice ship. I enjoyed watching this one fight. It did fairly well. I think it was actually one of the better ships in the tournament. Looking at it, yeah, it went 2-2. But yeah, we can go ahead and swap over to the next.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
You do have some comments in your stream chat, Stammer. Whoops, I just hit a rock. Yay.
Okay.
What are you
Let
playing,
me
Ion?
Oh, hey, Cringe. There's my friend from Taiwan. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well.
If Cringe wants to hop into the Discord, he's free to do that as well.
Yeah,
if
Cringe,
like.
if you want to hop into the voice chat with us, you're more than welcome to do so, sir.
Especially since we just loaded in the combined abomination between us.
The zebra ship.
I
The
believe
zebra
there's more
ship-
than one zebra ship, but yeah, this guy.
with the migrating pontoons. You know, it was interesting the first time when he first showed me the design and he first sent it over to me and asked if there was anything I would change. My initial impulse was those pontoons should both be on the same side, but I was kind of like, oh, well, let's see how it does.
And then it proceeded to wreck about every ship in the competition.
Once you put all the firepower on one side, yeah, man, hey, man, missiles are good and from the depths, especially when they don't have to deal with heavy armor. In fact, when they don't have to deal with heavy armor, they're probably the best weapons in the game.
Oh yeah, they'll hurt.
We saw it. The only ship in the tournament that could handle the firepower from this thing was the Lay Ugly, but it couldn't keep its guns alive. And then the Shashanket could weather it just because it had so many layers. And that's kind of the other weakness of missiles, is their damage is all kind of AoE at the surface level. So if I have 15 layers, and I actually had closer to 17, it takes an inordinate amount of time for the missiles to get all the way through it.
Mm-hmm. Seems my friend just survived about a COVID-19. Sorry to hear that, but glad you made it out on the other side.
Yeah, yikes.
I got some of that myself, and it sucked.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a nasty bug. Part of the reason for my continuing health problems was a virus before COVID went around, got my system in a very bad way. But yeah, I actually kind of like the aesthetic of this thing too. I don't know what exactly you'd call it.
Unique might be a good word.
Yeah. It's got some functional bridges. It's got some walkable catwalks and stuff. You can actually go into like crew quarters. There's a couple different areas with ACB decos and little control surfaces. He's got a nice little articulated chair over here for the pilot. I like his turrets, and his turret neck annoys me because it's not doing anything to protect the gun, and we saw it get blown off a whole bunch of times, but it looks good.
Hello.
Howdy.
That Cringe?
Yeah, I believe so.
How you doing?
Good, good. I saw you streaming and I was just like, hey, look at that. And then I got the invite. I was trying to rush on real quickly before you moved on.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just reviewing the double-sided pontoon.
Nightmare.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it is absolutely a nightmare. Especially
It's a
that
good
T
nightmare.
junction.
Yes, the one weakness. It's right about here, I think. Yep,
Yeah.
right on top
On
of it,
my
actually.
on my modernized retrofit, I went in and stuck like 7 pieces of heavy armor around it just because.
Well, I think
Probably
the problem
wise.
is,
Yeah.
it's you've got your midship, and you're just right below the deck, and yeah, that
Yeah, it just
being
has 2
midship
layers.
and right below the deck and right below deck level is not somewhere you put things you don't want to go boom.
Very true.
I got some more comments here. My friend from Taiwan is saying, come to say hello and tell you that they some toy cars for the U.S. Army in World War II to share the workshop. Okay.
Oh,
He
that's
says he's
fun.
temporarily updating due to his illness, and there are some seal clay. I'm not entirely sure what that word is that prevent me from concentrating. Yeah, that's kind of what COVID does.
Oh yeah, the brain fog aspect of it.
Hmm.
Yup. I
This year,
And you're sore everywhere.
Yep. I still have not gotten yeah, I just, with the vaccines and stuff out now, I hope they're in a spot where they it passes, hopefully. My brain fog and stuff became permanent pretty quickly, but mine didn't have vaccines or anything, so
Hmm.
mine was just bad luck.
All
I've
right.
had COVID like 3 times. It's not fun.
I only had it for like
Right, you're
twice.
in high school, so they kind of just used y'all as petri dishes, more or less.
Yeah, yeah, I just kept getting it, and I was having to be there in person. So fun.
Yeah, the United States has interesting ways of dealing with things.
Hmm. I was looking at that name really doesn't go through very well.
Yeah, it gets lost in the in the camo a little bit, doesn't it?
Just a
Hmm.
wee bit, yeah.
Also, I saw you looking at it earlier, the rear bridge. When I
Yeah,
was designing it, I was like, what if I add a second like thing that could represent like the command room to really
yeah.
throw off people's perspective on it.
It actually kind of works too. I appreciate it, especially because it's sitting right over top of the gun. This is something I love to do with my designs too. Is you put basically part of the bridge or the superstructure on top of your gun, and it's another layer of armor. So
Yeah. It was my
now
first time
this
doing something like this, so.
this here, you did not need this gap.
Oh, I actually did, or else the turret doesn't spin around as much. Those are just deco slabs.
Ah, okay. So what that probably is it was probably getting caught. So what you can do is you could go into do.
I think it was just the turret was too
Yeah,
big
if
of a
you hit
size.
this button here, you can find out what block it is in
Oh,
particular that's actually colliding, and it'll show it to you. So build
really?
mode tools, and then damage debugging, record turret spinner overlaps, and you could have redone the back of this turret cap so that it has full range of motion, and then you could add 2 layers of metal back here. Because it looked
Wow.
like, yep, that's what I remembered. It's like 1 layer of metal between this and your gun parts, and that's there's no
Uh,
actual ammo or armor back here at your gun
oh, I
parts.
forgot to finish that. Oh yeah, that was the last
Oh,
thing.
there's a gap.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Surprisingly though, well, the turret wasn't knocked out as much as I thought from that. It was really just
This
taking a dip
one,
from the
yeah,
front.
this one tended to survive a decent amount of time. I would say it's the one that went down the most often. This one, I'd say second most because this neck
Exposed.
got sniped a lot. And then this one tended to be alive for a long time.
This casemate's really clutched up.
Yes. The casemates did a great job of surviving. Built into the armor like this, they
It can absorb a lot of damage.
They really
No
can.
fairness.
Yeah, I used them as armor. I used them as spaced armor.
All right. Is there anything else we want to discuss about this guy before we move on?
Not
Not that
really.
I could
I think
think
we'll
of.
covered everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Let me release it, and we will move on to the next.
I might put the modernized blueprint in the
You know, that's
chat later.
probably one of the more meta designs of this competition, I believe.
Oh, you think the guard was?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, using the pontoons as spaced armor and then having all that firepower front loaded as missiles on one side.
Not that I'd say
Yeah.
there's anything wrong with it. It just
No, meta's a fine thing.
Yes.
I don't have any problem with that. Yeah. We've
So-
got Frenchie.
Yeah, we'll move on. I'll talk about that later.
okay.
It kind
And-
of slowly evolved into a meta build. Let's put it that way. I think it
Yeah,
started
that's
out.
fair.
It started out as kind of a more mixed entry, and it kind of evolved into meta, which is probably partially my fault. I'm a bad influence. I'm sorry, cringe.
My friend here says my U.S. Army World War II toy car was a little cruder, and I deliberately didn't add any decorations because I wanted to give other people the freedom to decorate those toy cars. Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah. It's interesting trying to make those shapes. I just got done doing a Advanced Wars recon unit, which is like a little square chibi boxy toy car shape, and it's really hard. It's really hard to make it look anything shy of hideous. So, hats off to them. It probably took a lot of work, especially without deco. That was probably really hard.
Yeah.
Um,
So one thing I want to point out here is, even though it's called like ugly, I really like how this thing turned out.
yes, the name is an absolute misnomer. So this is the second version. This was after I reached out to them and was like, "You are in the first round. You're facing someone who's had the opportunity to make changes. We should make some changes." So this is the first, which we never got to see in the tournament. This was version 1.
A lot less DACA.
Yeah, that's the additional DACA was, again, I'm a bad influence. So the original version had this kind of 3 smokestack design going on, and I actually think it looks better with the 2 midship guns as well. I like the triple smokestack. I think double makes more sense for a ship this size, and maybe one more gun here, if we were talking about aesthetics, would have done it the most justice. But in terms of performance, adding these additional 304s was night and day. Like it doubled the firepower, and it had some of the nastiest guns and nastiest rounds in the tournament. These guns reached really deep and did a absurd amount of damage. So
Yeah, it's a pretty well built ship overall. I remember it could take a lot of damage too. I believe it rolled over like maybe once or twice, but
yeah, we one of the things that I talked them into being willing to add was roll rudders in the rear and some vectored roll control for their props. But yeah, this one has, let's see, around 4, maybe 3-5 kinetic damage to metal. So it'll go through 2 layers of metal and then deliver 3,000 explosive damage. So these were some of the best shells in the tournament, some of the best armored turrets in the tournament too. And it happened to be on one of the prettier looking ships.
yeah. I
Big-
wouldn't be surprised if this does well in the aesthetics myself.
It just has a great shape. It has a really nice aesthetic to it. I love the big old spaced armor around the main armor belt to deal with torpedoes, the kind of big torpedo blister or They have a different name, and I never remember it, and that's fine.
You mean,
I love
Yeah,
all the
you
you
winglet
mean
turrets.
Tumble Home?
It is a little bit tumble homey, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
is
I
a
would.
really hard shape to pull off in FTD, so and he's done it
Especially make
very
it
well
look
with
good.
this, I believe.
Yeah, make it look good. Put plenty of guns on it. It's just adding one challenge on top of another, and they pulled it off. I love their super thin metal plate armor for their superstructure too. I think that
Mm.
ended up looking really aesthetically nice. They used some applique up top for their little
Mm.
crow's nests. It's a cool looking ship. I really liked this thing a lot. Loved
How
watching it fight.
realistic is the bridge? I know it's not meant. Well, I don't know if it is meant
Um,
or not, but were ships designed like that?
it's not big enough. I'd say if this were going to be like crew functional, the bridge would probably have to extend all the way back to the rear smokestack and just kind of go over top of the turrets. It'd need to be built out a lot wider. But, you know, it's from the devs. If you actually tried to do that, it would look awful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as
Um,
in,
yeah. So, in terms of realism, the shape is very nice. And I think it looks great on the ship itself, but, you know, it takes a lot of bodies to
Hmm.
basically just to even keep one of these things functional, and there would not be enough space in this.
but in FTD it looks fantastic. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Got another comment here. He says, like my previous works, those toy cars made a lot of 1 meter blocks. Hope that doesn't bother you.
No.
And there are also some cars with weird size ratios. Yeah, that's FTD for you.
You just can't get the
uh,
ratios quite right. The
that's
Ugly,
the
another really, really good performer. I mean, this thing, I think this thing was the gatekeeper to the finals that Cringe you actually had to go up against.
yeah. It gave me a run
Um,
for my money. I think it
yeah,
got
it
me
was
one round, but I came back.
exactly. Yeah, it was 1-2 in that. Oop, what in the
Yeah,
world?
I wanted to kind of compare my Tumblehome to his.
Ah, that's what loaded. I was like, what did I do?
That was all me. Sorry, I probably should have
No,
warned
it's
you.
fine. You
But
know, first thing I'm noticing, yours is kind of a little bit lower profile. His stands out of the water a little more.
More like an
So,
ironclad.
yeah, I was just about to say it gives off a little bit more of an ironclad aesthetic in
well, it is an
comparison.
ironclad tournament.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I did have one
Forgot about
design where it was where the ship was much shorter, and I was trying to make it look like a Viking longboat.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I can't remember if where or what I named it. Is it this thing? No, that's a plane. Anyway, I just thought it'd be interesting to bring that guys in and show you, what.
Yeah, yeah.
Looks good.
I'd
looks
say definitely the portions that are below water pretty similar. I'd say yours definitely goes a lot harder on the taper into it. This one's very it goes out very suddenly, which I think is both there were ships that did that. I guess is the long version of what I'm trying to say. I'd say there were more that did this slow, gentle taper like this. When you think of a lot of like the yours, that is the Civil
Yeah.
War era ironclads did this especially very frequently, where you kind of have this tall deck and gun kind of aesthetic sticking out of a tumble home bottom that's almost completely submerged.
My friend here says, I think this Dreadout looks very special. He looks fully armored and ready for battle. Yeah, it's got some decent armor on it. I think I was the only person to try to use full-size beams for it, but
Well, okay, Fish did as well. Fish and Cringe both used full size beams quite a lot, and
okay.
these The ugly class actually has a lot of full-size beams.
Oh, just
Um,
solid metal? Yeah.
for the most part, it's solid metal. I'm still kind of mystified by how this thing remained buoyant for as long as it did. He's
That air
got a
gap.
lot of compartments for storing air, and then, but like, I just added a little bit of thrust vectoring here in the back, and
Hmm.
thrust vectoring and from the depths is just magic. I don't know what else to call it. You add some roll rudders and some thrust vectoring, and suddenly you can't capsize or sink. I don't know.
Did you breadboard
Yeah.
that, or did you ACB it, or what?
No, breadboards are banned. If you take a look in the back, right behind the or right in front of the propellers, you can
Uh,
see my ACB arrangement.
okay. That's kind of why I was asking, because I could have sworn breadboards are banned.
Yeah, but that ain't gonna stop me from thrust vectoring. Dude,
Fair
I
enough.
used.
Thrust vectoring in this game is just ridiculous.
It's ridiculously strong. So are roll rudders. Like rudders in general are absurdly powerful. They're enough to make small craft float and levitate out of the water, basically, because they generate force from nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Shachankan, I used ACBs to control buoyancy and pitch by shifting the level that air pumps were running at in like 5 or 6 different chambers going front to back.
Oh,
So
that explains a lot.
that's why it doesn't sink.
It's just like that thing was almost cut in half, and it wasn't even like dipping
Yeah,
down.
it didn't
in the
even
water.
show it. It was just
So
sitting there like, I'm fine. I don't even know what.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it has a bunch of buoyancy chambers and cheeky little tricks to keep it from ever wanting to sink.
All right.
With the, oh, one last thing with the Lee Ugly,
Yes.
and actually
Yes,
Dama's
sir.
thing too. It has one of my biggest pet peeves, and might just be a me thing. If
Okay.
you look at the deck and how it like cuts off and blocks,
Oh,
like,
you mean aesthetically how it goes from wedges to
Yeah.
blocks?
I could see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah,
try to
yeah.
like deco an edge in there to make it more curved. I believe I did that with the
Right.
guard.
Yeah, that's just one of those from the depths things. I like to hide it by putting a little ridge going all the way along the deck of like metal or something.
Yep.
But yes, I know exactly what you mean. What you gonna do? It's a game based on blocks, and you're trying to make angular and pretty. Oops! I accidentally got rid of yours. I was aiming for
Oh,
the
you're fine.
ugly.
We probably
Yeah,
need
it's
to
just
move on
like
to
Speaking of
the.
depths angles, did you know that the triangles aren't exactly at the angles they're supposed to be at?
I believe I heard someone say that before.
Yeah.
Like the wedges and stuff.
Yeah, the down slopes. For example, let's just use the down slope 1. You'd think that angle would be 45, right?
It
It's
is
like
not.
25.
As someone
It's
who's
not.
tried to deco things, it is not.
Yeah.
It's not a 45. It's like, oh, come on. From the depths, you could have done.
Oh god, the
So-
4 meter ones are the worst because I think they're like 11.67 or something
Yeah,
like that, or
like
like
pretty much that.
14.37 or something. It drives me insane. So
They
next
should have
up
did
we've
pretty well,
got
too.
the Riviera
Speaking of
by
wedges.
Kevin, which is definitely one of the prettiest ships in the competition.
Oh, I love it. It is amazing.
Yeah, I really like these sails. These sails are so cool. Oh, he put detection up on top of them too. How is that done?
What? I think it's just a camera and something hidden.
Camera and on top of a local weapon controller. Ah, okay. All in one. Yeah, this is something the keepers of the lore like to do a lot. They use their local weapon controllers to extend their AI Tetris all around the ship. Now that you can have
Not
local
a bad
weapon
idea.
controllers. No,
That's
it's a
actually
great
smart.
idea. Yeah. They're basically built-in, more durable, cheaper wireless receivers. So there's no reason not to do it.
You got the cost exactly 200,000.
Yep, cost is 200,000. I think the volume
Nice.
is 13.5. The interior is basically just gun.
Look
Many
for the glass cannon.
Oh yeah, many zero clip Tetris. Well, kind of. So, he's got what is this? He's got metal, metal slope, metal.
Jexia, how's it going, Jexia?
Hmm?
Oh, it's yeah, a mutual friend of me, Ions, and Lil Kari's here. We
Oh,
did a
okay.
bunch of 7 Days to Die back several months ago.
Oh, that's
Oh,
fun.
that game's great.
7 Days to Die, MechWarrior Online.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I've been missing his comment because he always tries to burn me in the back whenever he has access to a flamethrower, so, you know.
Spy check. It's
Yeah.
reflexive. They must have played a lot of Team Fortress. This is a nice little 3D Tetris in here on this cram. I would expect no less.
Yeah, Kevin knows his shit, not gonna lie.
Yeah, this is nicer than my 3D Tetris. I always screw up one of the layers.
Oh, absolutely. I always think to myself, like, I need more crams in my fleet. Then I go to build crams, and it's like, I hate my life now. I'm gonna stick with APS. And then rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. APS is just like this. Not the superior weapon system. It's just the easier to build weapon system.
Absolutely.
They sure can be. The crams, when it comes to big ships, nothing scales like cram in this game. You know, you get 90,000 shell health that does 300,000 frag damage, and like, you know, it's it's something else. So aha, you know what? I said something about
Aha.
this. He did store ammo by the paddle wheel in the armor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't we have some issues with his ammo touching off?
Well,
Indeed.
we kept I kept thinking that I saw ammo going off when it was taking damage in the back, but every time it went off, we couldn't figure out where it blew up. So now we finally have the opportunity to do a block by block view, and he's got 3 cases of ammo here back by the paddle wheel, which I also really like this paddle wheel. He's got this kind of doubled up,
Yeah, I saw that too.
Oh.
which is really clever. I like that a lot. Kind of staggers it. Using the old unfortunate symbolism Tetris from APS.
Yeah, I was about to say, it reminds me of something, but if it works.
Yeah, what can you do? Squares are squares. Wow, I guess this is probably a secondary AI here, because otherwise that's not particularly defended. Oh,
These
here's the
side
main
guns
AI.
are doing like just straight up HE.
Yup. Yep. Big HE too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are 12-inch guns. And what are these guys?
Frag. Pure
152,
frag on the
okay.
casemates.
That's actually a really good choice for casemates because you
Yup.
don't ever have to worry about them touching off.
Yeah, I did pure frag with a hollow point head so that it can't bounce.
Probably not a horrible idea.
No, I have 0 tolerance for shell bounces.
Wow. That's
Sorry to hear
pretty
about your
neat.
dad there, Jexia. He says his father is gonna pass through. Yeah. My father gonna pass through it. Some good news I misread that. I guess he's doing okay then.
Sounds like
Sorry,
maybe
you-
he's going to be visiting?
Oh, okay.
Much
Yeah,
nicer than the other meaning.
Yeah.
It looked like he said he passed away. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no. It sounds like they intended that he's going to be stopping by, which is much
Okay.
more pleasant. Happy to hear that.
Yes.
Oh,
bad.
yeah. I forgot about this. I saw this Tetris that he did with the steam engine that I thought was really kind of interesting. He's got this
Yeah, it's
single
pretty
medium
tight.
crank with a 4-meter piston hooked up to boilers, just enough boilers to give it the full pressure. Thought that was really interesting.
Wow.
Very easily defended, too. Sort of. It's got a lot of surface area to hit, but it's very narrow.
Yeah, this thing is kind of built for speed. I mean, if you
Um,
look at the transmission in the back, they're maxed out. And
Yup,
Even the shape just kind of gives it a speed look.
it does. Yeah, very narrow silhouette. Very, very pretty front to it. I think this one did drive around the max. I think it was like 22 to 24 meters a second. So, yeah, it did very well in terms of speed. There were only a couple faster ships.
Yeah, I remember you said there's something going on with him, Jexia. He says he's passing through his cancer, so very,
Oh,
very glad to
okay.
hear that. Okay.
Okay, so maybe beating it or in remission, which again, very good news. Happy to hear.
Yes. Yes, very good
Oh.
news.
Here we go. This is more of the AI Tetris that they do here. You've got all-in-one local weapon with more processing cards on it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But I
it's a
could see
pretty
this
ship.
thing doing. Yeah, I was about to say I could definitely see this thing doing well in the aesthetics competition as well.
Oh yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah. It's very pretty. I'm in love with the sails, which I've said a couple times now.
It's like he's done about every kind of propulsion system that we allowed.
Yeah, exactly. He's got the paddle wheel. He's got the 3 meters. It's gorgeous. Got some roll rudders. The roll rudders, man, we definitely saw when this thing ended up dead in the water. Those roll rudders were playing a really, really big role in keeping it upright
Hmm.
because the turret caps are interesting, being very small like this. Um,
Huh,
oh,
that gun is.
and right, one of the heavy barrels is basically just for decoration. The 152s in the front. I forgot about that. Um, Without the roll rudders, this thing was having a rough time staying upright. Such a cool
Wait a
silhouette.
minute, did you say one of those guns was for decoration?
Yes,
What?
right here. This one's not connected.
Which one are we talking about here?
So the front 152, the way that Kevin set up their Tetris, it's an all-sider Tetris, so all the parts get kidnapped by one of the firing pieces until that firing piece dies.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So-
what the one is no shell loaded.
Exactly. So when this left one dies, if the firing piece dies but the gun Tetris is still intact, the one on the right will take, or the one on the left will take over.
Hmm.
It works exactly like this with lasers too. If you set them up right, you can have 2 lasers and one of them will just be a redundant firing piece, basically. I like to do it sometimes with lasers because it means that you draw less on your cavities, which is nice. Because otherwise, if you have 2 of them working all the time, your cavities get drained twice as quickly. So you have like better burst fire, but worse sustain. All right, do we want to move on to the next?
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. I do feel like, and I could be wrong, was I part of the reason that for the upcoming tank battle, y'all decided to ban the horizontal wheels and some of the cheesy stuff that I showed off on stream?
I remember someone was talking about it, but I can't remember who. It might have been you, might not.
It probably was me.
Heitzmeister that first brought it to my attention, I believe.
Yeah, he was there on stream when I was showing off some of my stuff. And then I feel like maybe the ring shields might have gotten banned for something along those lines too, where I think I brought the applique panels up past the armor value. I think they were at like 70 armor value or something for that space tournament.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, ring shields are really good on small vehicles. So we have the Kista next, which classic ironclad, really cool shape.
Yes, CSS Virginia kind of look to it.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Lots of gun that just barely hangs out above the water.
Why's this thing got a heartstone in it?
Again, campaign. I guess maybe they plan on using it for Glau or something.
Okay.
Does it need a heartstone for Glau?
For Glau,
Yes,
I believe a vehicle
yes.
without a heartstone is despawned.
Oh.
So yes.
Then you
That
can't
is-
spawn on top of it because you'll just run out of health and die.
Yeah, well, that doesn't help. But I think the
Oh, I thought
vehicles
that was
also
only-
just die without a heartstone in Glau, so it's a big deal.
I thought that was just for adventure mode.
No, it originated in Glau, I think. Actually, I think it originated in like the normal campaign, but they took it out. Quote unquote normal campaign, but they took it out because, well, they wanted the scope of Neater to be bigger, and it can't be bigger if you're stuck to Rambot all the time.
Yeah.
Has a propellant?
Yes,
my
it
reactor
does.
will leak. Damn it.
Some props back here, or at least a prop.
Yep, it's got the one 3 meter. Nice little overkill steam engine, but it's
Just a tad.
what was interesting about this was they had the possibility to go for a two-stager here, and they wouldn't need as much steam generation. But they chose to route it out to the steam pipes up top, which I like. When I sent them kind of a thing that I would change, where I messed with their cram Tetris to milk out something like an extra. Oh god, I think I almost doubled the firepower. I think I brought the cram firepower up to like 120, 130, just by messing with how a couple of the blocks are connected. But one of the things I did was I armored up their engine a little bit better because it's surrounded by wood back here, which was a problem for it against a couple of ships. And then for these steam pipes, I set this up as a two-stager and just put a single steam barrel and controller on each, so that they still had the steam pump coming out of them, but it wasn't from the engine itself, if that makes sense. Decorative
And I mean, I
steam.
like the bow and the stern on this. They came up pretty good looking.
They did. It's real sharp. I love that he stuck rams on it. I love that he's got turning rudders up front and in the rear. Give it nice tight turning circle. These were some of the most reliably impacting missiles in the tournament too. Were the ones that that Fish brought. They landed like probably I'd say 3/4, maybe 80% of the time. You got hit by them.
It didn't require any motivational speeches or fire corner shots. They just fired right at it.
Isn't that nice, huh?
Uh-huh.
Just
So let's
looking
see.
at his cram Tetris up here, looks fairly decent.
Some shared pellets, if I recall, too. Got a pretty good, one of the higher damage kinetic rounds in the game, and in fact, they went for the penetration depth fuse as a solid body behind the AP head. Yep, that's the proper way to build the shell. This looks great. Proper quote unquote, you know. It does look like actually they could have added one more gunpowder to this.
All right, checking out these APS mains.
Yeah. It looks like they could have added one more gunpowder module and then brought it up to... There it is. So they could have added one more gunpowder module and brought it up to 0.78 propellant and given themselves a little bit of extra kinetic damage. Actually,
Yeah,
yeah, that
that
brings their armor
probably-
pierce up.
It might be able to go through about 3 metal beams. You know, if, like you said, you swap that less component up for a gunpowder, I think it'd be pretty nasty.
Well, that's the nice thing is it actually doesn't have to swap. You can just add a part. So the default is he had it set at 13 components.
Oh.
And if you look at it, it's 3760 on the casing length here. So if you pop it up to 14, and then this last component on the propellant, you just drag that down to around, I think it was 0.78, and your shell plus casing ends up at 3997.79. So you basically get 3/4 of an extra gunpowder in.
So
For
what's
free.
a good amount of AP usually want for a shell?
I
I
like
think
to hit
40 is a
40.
pretty good number.
Yeah. Unless you're doing
40,
something
30.
really specific, like I try to make a lot of the time I make guns that counter specific craft. So like my Gray Talons craft, I have 60 AP on it because they love to stack heavy armor towards all their important bits, but usually you want 40 and as much kinetic damage as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, I've been building my guns completely wrong.
Right. So what most people will tell you is that this number here, this 202,577, that's the only number you should be looking at. A lot of the time is what they'll tell you. It's oversimplifying it a bit, I think, but it's not the worst advice. If this number is going down and you're already at like 35 armor pierce or something, the conventional wisdom would be that you've done something wrong with the shell. If that makes sense.
I've never been looking at that number. I always look at expected armor pierce because I've always been thinking like, oh, like 22 to 25, that seems good. But apparently
So,
no.
if you have 22 to 25, your kinetic damage that it shows here is going to be half that when you're hitting metal, because you need around 48 to get through metal.
Have a little extra, well, hurt either, especially
No.
if they're using stacked armor.
So when you want to hit like 20, when you want to hit exactly 20, is for Sea Whiz because you don't need more than that. So that's when heavy heads are really good because it's really easy to hit. Just using this gun as an example, you just drop a heavy head on here, and bloody heck, I hit the wrong thing. You drop a heavy head on here, your armor piercing value goes down to, I mean, it's already at 16. Boom. Now you're doing full damage to munitions, and you're doing 8,000 damage to cram shells or to basically whatever you want to hit. So that's where heavy heads are really strong.
Oh. Below Wild Haven.
Yeah. So yeah.
Good luck trying to stop a volley with a APS sealed whiz on this thing, though.
Yeah. I mean, and then if we're gonna be real, like Kevin was pointing out the other day, with the current state of diffs, the best anti-cram and anti-huge missile CWIS in the game is just diff flak, because 10-meter flak shells. Flak is, he was talking about it, it's got like a hidden nerf where it doesn't do damage to like anything that has more armor than wood unless it's a shell. I keep trying to explain that to people when I see them using flak in YouTube videos, and it's like, no, don't use flak anymore. it won't hurt
I know,
vehicles.
right? It does piss all the
Noticed
aircraft
that.
nowadays.
Well, I believe they reduced its damage by a factor of like 50 to anything that has more armor than wood if it's not a shell. And it's not noted in the documentation anywhere. So like when you're looking at the shell to build
That
it,
sounds about typical, yeah.
yeah, like all they need to do, I'm really frustrated with it because all they need to do is when you are over the flak creates an explosion that's larger in radius, less damaging, and weaker against armor. But it says the armor pierce modifier is 0.1. It doesn't say that the explosive damage does less damage to armor than explosive damage typically was, because what it means to say is that it does 1/10 of a normal HE round's explosive damage to armor. Okay, it's a factor of 10 weaker than normal explosive shells. I think it's actually worse than that. But it doesn't say that anywhere. So you look at this and you go, oh, it just means my shell doesn't do very much armor piercing. That doesn't matter. It's explosive damage. But yeah, I mean, I get why they had to do it, because the wrapping calculations and stuff from Flak were killing performance with Flak. So I get it. But it needs to be specified somewhere.
So use flak for like CWIS and HE for AA.
Yep. Honestly, AA, you're best using lasers. Both kinetic lasers and laser lasers. Kinetic lasers being stabilizer thin body, sabot head, super high meter per second speed, low gauge sabot shells, because they'll blow aircraft out of the sky because you'll just shred them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've been liking I was building tanks for a custom CC with some, I guess now friends, and I made an AA tank, and it had 4, I believe, 200 millimeter HE guns.
This is
and
also
those
going to
were
be
AA.
one I have to pull out of the water because she's not going to stop. Okay, there we go. So here's the Shichanka.
She-chan.
The tankiest...
Is there a Heechaka?
Hmm?
Is there a Heechaka?
I don't think so. I think any kind of chonk is only going to be she-chonk in this universe. I did spend a lot of time on Deco for it, so it will take a while to kind of walk around through everything.
Okay.
Ended up being it's the tankiest ship in the tournament, specifically to non-penetrating HE or frag damage, which is exactly what I was going for, because I expected a lot more torpedo and missile spam than actually ended up here. But I'd mentioned it a couple of... Yeah, Cringe was the only one who ended up doing that, and she did exactly what she was supposed to do in that situation.
Mm-hmm. It was close, though. Every time.
It was super
really.
close. Yeah, it was great. Like, those were those were probably some of my favorite matches in the tournament because
Oh, absolutely.
it was the worst case for your ship and exactly what I built this thing to try, quote unquote, to deal with, because you can't with, like Mecha said, without heavy armor, it's really difficult to deal with missiles in general. So this was basically a parody of the kind of Wild West in between days of ship design, especially among the French and Italians, where kind of anything went and they just kept throwing stuff on there. And you'd see a lot of really wide mid deck for no discernible reason, with asymmetrical, bizarre looking superstructure. Again, no discernible function to it, no functional reason to it. So I went as asymmetric and OCD triggering and obnoxious as I possibly could with the superstructure.
Sounds like something I would try to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's got a lot of fun little like ladders and stairways up to the different deck levels. Everything is meant to look like it could be serviced and
I'm sorry.
walked up into.
Like I would do?
Like
I was
exactly.
thinking back to that big cathedral boat that you made for.
Oh, the 4 keys.
Yes, the Ford keys. By
Uh,
the way, my
somebody
wife
put
still
date
thinks
that.
you should have won the aesthetics competition for that thing, but she brings it up all the time.
I love that.
So I should
I do
mention
as well.
that she's an aesthetic judge for the
The tank
for this
tournament.
tournament.
Right? Oh, for this
Oh,
one too.
Mm,
Heck
Hey,
yes.
she's watching. Hello.
she opened to bribes.
She opened to-
Thank
And
you
if
for
so, what kind of
continuing to say
bribes?
You like it.
Yeah, I got a gift card for a free Chick-fil-A milkshake over here. I'll gladly send it over.
Just pass it over the table.
Usually, I find chocolate and flowers goes over pretty well. I want
Ah,
to, yeah.
I do know some good chocolate. I can get in touch with Sharky back on the Big Island and send you guys some fresh stuff.
Mm.
Ooh.
I still need to update the 4 keys. I mean, the build patterns I was using for it, I have advanced a bit from then. So I could make it look even better, I think.
That's the weird thing about From the Devs. It seems like with every build you go back and go, what in the hell was I doing?
Well, my favourite
That
part
is
was
so true.
my favourite part was how whenever we started the battle, it would lag the match out for a minute.
Oh, lovely. That's very From the Depths classic.
Oh,
Yes.
Not bad for a paddle boat.
Not bad at all. So I've got munitions and decorative crates and ammo processors stowed all over the place. I've got 2 different lower deck tiers for the casemates built into it, where they're kind of protected and built into the hull. It's got a little bit of the paddle home, torpedo blister aesthetic going on the bottom, a real deep, long keel, a obnoxiously pointed stiletto of an icebreaker, and elongated prow for no reason, with casemates built into it, because they did do that from occasion, or from time to time. I even made it look like you might be able to access them from the interior, which the interior is probably not part of the aesthetics competition, so we can skip right over that, because the interior of this thing is a never-ending nightmare. Got
I'm
the
gonna
same.
send you something of what this thing reminds me of.
What does it
It'll
remind
be
you
in the
of?
streaming chat. Oh, nothing. Just it's in the streaming chat right now.
I bet it is. Being sassy, are you? Got the same. So all of the missile pods have spin blocks to open up the torpedo bays / missile bays. But yeah, a little bit of mast, a little bit of comm towers, lots and lots of superstructure because I wanted it to look like it could actually be crewed. It's still a little bit on the small side in terms of superstructure for that, but I have this hilarious little double 64-pounder set up on a turret back here with a chair and a weapon controller. It's even
That's
got
my favorite
stairs.
weapon system on this boat.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's there to protect the crane for cargo loading. Got another crane over here, a little bit better decoed one. But yeah, that's basically the Chichanka. Went for kind of chunky, somewhat period appropriate, but also somewhat from the depths-ish turret caps, which was good because turret caps ended up being a weak point for a lot of ships in this competition.
Just a weak point for a lot of ships in
Yeah.
general, too.
Yup, and that was thankfully something I did not really struggle with. The biggest problem I had was I had a couple HE leaks that took out guns, but that was you can't.
That'll happen.
Yeah, it's from the depths, you know. You can't really build around that.
Isn't that where it kind of squeezes its way in between blocks into like your gap?
It's
the,
kind of
the shaft.
it's kind of a bug. The game calculates basically it updates it once every frame, and sometimes it tries to pretend that it can be faster than that, and you end up with these situations where heavy or where explosive damage ends up going through areas where it thinks there's a hole where there's not a hole, or even teleporting into a craft. The same thing can happen with missiles and projectiles sometimes, where something moving sufficiently fast will teleport into the ship on the next frame and then detonate rather than detonating at the surface. So yeah, it's kind of just game limitations, you know? In terms of what they have here, they had to use a lot of cheats in order for you to be able to do this all at runtime, right? There's not a lot of games, like if you look at Space Engineers, any kind of fight or anything at scale in Space Engineers becomes a slideshow immediately. It's really difficult to calculate all these different blocks taking damage basically independently of each other and having kind of real-time munitions calculations and explosive calculations. So it's
And the
It's
calculations for
complicated.
blocks taking damage.
yeah, exactly. So it's really really complicated, and I'll gladly take the HE leaks to be able to spawn ships in and actually have them do things rather than just doing aesthetic builds all the time because you can't actually do anything functional, right?
Yep.
By the way, BWI has popped into chat here. He was asking to see if we covered his ship yet.
Not yet, not yet. That's
We're
the
going to
wave
be
breaker.
getting to it.
So it's going to be a little bit later. Oh yeah, so cringe. This is what I ended up going up with my shell. You can see it's fairly similar actually to what we ended up with on the Howling Gull, where it's got the 30 armor pierce, the 6600 kinetic, and the 2000 explosive.
Oh yeah, that sounds like it'll hurt a bit.
They were nasty. They were one of the nastier guns in the competition. They reached deep and
Yeah.
they blew shit up. And I had 4 of them functionally. So yeah.
Really good muzzle velocity on these, by the way.
Yes, 1285, man. Basically guaranteed to hit. Basically guaranteed to hit, man. They all had the absolute max rate of fire too, and the max rate of fire for for one turret, I believe, was 24 rounds a minute. So they're just. I built the guns
Looks like
first.
they do about maybe go through about 2-3 metal beams. It looks like what you have it set up for.
Yes, sir.
They did.
They did, yeah. And then there's 4 of them firing 12 rounds a minute each. So this ship, when it comes down to it, was an APS ship. It's basically all APS with a little bit of cram for fun. I've got this 3D Tetris cram in the back here, 5x5 3D Tetris. That was hollow point HE. Enough hollow point to destroy 1 block of metal. Enough HE to do something. Who knows what. And then missiles, just because they're really expensive, and I wanted to get the cost up. We ended up at very close to 200,000 exactly, and we ended
Almost
up
there.
at the volume limit.
7 wood blocks would have done it.
Yeah, you should have.
Yeah, that's what Cringe said, and I decided to leave him out just to bug with him. Just to bug him.
I know.
Oh,
I love being sassy to this ship. It
you
deserves
you
it.
would because it you had a rough time with it, sir. Right. Does the engine count for the aesthetic tournament? Because I find it very aesthetic.
No.
No? Darn. So this is a technically a 3-stage steam engine set up. We've got the 2-stage at the top, and then they actually share steam with each other, going up and down. And there's another 2-stager down below, separated by metal. And they're all connected at 2 different points to each other using belts, so that all of the shafts maintain drive as long as any one of the engines is alive. And then it's got differential thrust. It also has vectored thrust using these ACBs here at the back. Then I also have ACBs. Oh yeah, and this was my little trick. We swap between circle at and broadside so that we close aggressively and then we pull out, which ended up kind of hurting me against your ship, Cringe, because I would pull away from your ship instead of circling it.
Yeah.
And we've also
That's where
got...
the Vanas did good. They would circle.
Yeah.
I really like the redundancy you have built into this engine.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Came in very handy. Came in very, very handy. Because the engine did get knocked out a couple of times against Cringe, but so basically it's 4 different steam systems. Almost 5, you could count it as, because they're connected to each other. And as long as one of them is still running, the engine's got power.
I believe Ian had a question there.
Oh.
Yes, may I disagree with your statement that engines will not count for the aesthetic competition? My suggestion is they do count if they have been decorated. Building just like an efficient engine block, yeah, that's not exactly aesthetics.
It's engineering aesthetics.
If it's a proper engine, like if you install a coal pile with loading conveyors
yeah,
to put stuff into the boiler and all that.
okay,
jazz,
so the
yes,
Apocryphon has me beat there because they had their little coal stacks right next to the engine room.
that's a start, but not much by itself, I think. But yes, go ahead.
BWI has some questions about the engine here.
Oh, really?
He wants to know what's going on with all the linked pulleys, and he thought the wheels were just for linking generators.
So yeah, so flywheels can link props to each other. So these exterior props are actually driven by a separate gearbox with this small wheel that has a pulley system. This pulley system drives all of the wheels on this lower section by itself. And then you see this pulley goes up to here, which connects the 2 separate steam engines to each other so that they can share power.
I'm trying to find a ship of mine that shows it off a little bit better if I could just remember.
Yeah, mine's a little bit cluttered in here. It's kind of hard to see what's going on. But yeah, so the pulleys I'm using to share power between the steam engines, which also share steam between each other. And then they're also 2-stage, which means that if this one over here gets destroyed,
I don't know if I want
this one still runs, and vice versa. And on top of that, they're recycling each other's steam. So one, you'll notice, has a lower input pressure than the other. So this one's input pressure is 1, whereas this one is 10.
Throwing in a bit of a chonker, just a heads up.
Oh, I heard.
Oh, this one. It's not the one I was thinking of. God dang it.
What in the world?
Oh, I like the decal on the turrets.
Oh, thank you.
Big old stretch to pleat. That looks good.
I thought this is one where I had them all tied together, but no, that's not correct. Sorry.
Those are big turrets.
Yes, they are quad 16-inch.
Jesus. Never end up doing a quad. I've wanted to.
Yeah, the
Quads are
Tetris can be a
surprisingly
bit of
easy.
a nightmare.
Yeah, quads are easy. Says the guy who did a 6-barrel turret.
Oh, you've got these separated out with metal too.
Oh, that's smart. That's smart.
Shoot, I thought I had one. I could pull one in here that had a better view of the.
The steam. Go ahead. Let's. We'll get this out of the way so that it doesn't lag us.
Yeah, that thing is going to take a while to detonate.
Yeah, I don't know why it does this block by block destruction, and I didn't see. Can I pull the forces out? You cannot pull forces out. Great. So you can't instant despawn either.
You can just reset the designer.
That is true. Yeah.
Actually, I think that would be on your end, wouldn't it?
Yes. How
yeah,
about we go ahead and do that?
Sure, go ahead.
Let's see here.
And I will be right back. 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just take a bit of a pause here.
Sure.
Anyway,
I'm not kidding about that. Devin knows that I made a Tillman gun that has 6 barrels for 1 turret.
yeah, I think doing the Tetris about damn near killed you, if I remember correctly.
You can say that.
But yeah,
I'm
we're
getting
just going to
scared.
take us a little intermission here. I'm sorry. No, look, Curry, were you about to say something there?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, BW, you can take like multiple crank motors, you put those flywheels on them, and you can combine all their power down to one propeller if you want. And you can get a ton of speed that way. I just can't remember off the top of my head which of my ships has that kind of setup on it, unfortunately.
I think it's one of your neural ones.
I'm wondering if it might be the Defender. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But I haven't put any ships up to the workshop in quite some time. Maybe I ought to do that again here. But I just got so burnt out on FTD for a while there, I just did not want to even log into the game for like about a month or two.
Felt that. I've been having problems just like designing things. I'm kind of brain dead when it comes to creativity at the moment.
Well, I'm kind of at a point where, you know, I feel like I've kind of built everything, if that makes sense at all.
Oh no, that makes perfect sense.
And I just don't feel like I got anything to prove. I mean, I know I can do it.
I take breaks of 6 months to a year.
Hey, Bob, how's it going?
Hey, man. Yeah, it was almost a year since my last campaign.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, I'm back.
All right, so we ready to hop back in?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, one of the things I did want to point out with Dev, something that doesn't get talked about or mentioned is one of the only
BWI
ways to
makes a good
actually
point
hit
here.
maximum RPM with Steam props is to use that trick with drive belts. If you only
Yep.
have them direct drive, they can only hit like half the RPM if you're not using a 1 meter prop, and that's kind of frustrating. And they kind of intend for you to hook them up to more than one via belts or to stick a transmission on them.
I kind of want to just throw together something for BWI to see how this works.
Sure, absolutely.
'Cause
I
can't
probably
remember
shouldn't
which
have
one of my
deleted the
ship
craft
uses.
then. Sorry about
It's
that.
okay. It's okay. I probably should have said something. We're fine though. Okay, so like you'll want to have one of these as your actual prop here, but if you take go under small gearbox, you grab these small wheels, attach them like so, and then we could take a well, I probably need no more shafts, but yeah, just to give us a little more room to work with here. There we go. Now, if you hit Q while looking at one of these, you have the option to connect a lot of them to each other, but you have to have them running at the same velocity, or else you're not going to be allowed to connect them like I just did here. Hope that clears things.
So it works in the same way as custom tracks.
Pretty much, yeah, now that you mention it. But it is a great way to get a lot of speed real easily, but it's going to require a bit more engine power.
It's especially useful on what is it? The motor driver drive system.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you try to connect like a steam system up to one of these, it's where you're just using crank motors, is not going to connect because they're going to be running at two different velocities. But if you just wanted to have nothing but the wheels here. Well, if you could have them hook onto something, but yeah, you can see maximum RPM mismatch. So that could be a problem for you if you're wanting to try to do one of these. But now that we got them like this, we can connect. So, hope that clarifies things a bit.
Oh, I forgot you could slow down the game.
Mm-hmm.
Ta-da!
Yeah,
Always
he says he's all good now. Okay, but yeah, seriously, try it. You can get some pretty crazy speeds by doing it like this.
It's why the Shachankan can go like 35, 40 meters a second if I give her the reins.
Yeah.
And this is
you
a
okay
simple
with me,
two-stager here.
Are you okay with me deleting this?
Yeah, I just also, behind you, I built a little simple two-stage steam engine. The only defining factor is that you go from the one boiler here that has a pressure of 5, and the output here will have half that pressure. You use that output as the input for the other one. And you basically get free motor drive power. This also... So there is a way to circumvent the limitation you were talking about with the RPM thing. You can mismatch them. The only difference is that you have to have them backed up by a gearbox. Boop-a-doop.
Now that part I didn't know.
Yeah, so like if I had another engine running at a different RPM up above this one, like actually happens in the Shachankan, I could still connect them if I just toss this steam whale here. Boop.
That is good to know.
Yeah, that's why they're able to run and back up like that. They do not have equivalent engine power. The one underneath it is running much slower than the one above it, which, you know, it technically, if you do that, it's going to hurt your RPM from the props, but hurt and help, right? Because it's contributing extra engine power, but you expand how many props you can drive, but you drive them at a lower speed. There we go. That's what my brain's trying to say. All right.
Diminishing returns is a thing, though. After you get to a certain point, they won't do anything anymore.
Exactly, yeah. So the big thing, I guess, to hammer on is if you want to drive a 3-meter shaft at the full RPM, and I think Damo was talking about this earlier, the only way you can do it is if you have more than one belt to it, or if you have a transmission. And doing it with a transmission is lossy, doing it with multiple belts is not. And that's it.
All right. So, I guess we're ready to move on then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So go ahead and spawn in our next friend, please.
That's going to be the Victory class, and then after the Victory class will be Devs, the Wavebreaker. So this is another one that had 2 iterations that we saw. This is the second one that had a Moboom.
Oh, yeah, I remember this guy.
Yeah, another kind of rather pretty looking one, honestly. I like the shape a lot. And I really liked the deco on the turret caps, which you sent me a really cool image of something similar that you had done. I really like this aesthetic. It looks so good.
Let me show that off real quick, if that's okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, man.
Let's see.
I just hadn't thought to do that and make it look like a proper artillery piece. Just nice. Just nice. I also really like they used... oh, look, it's a little one, too. Oh, wow, these actually look rather similar to each other.
Are y'all hearing static from my mic, by any chance?
No, you're good.
My end. These have very similar profiles and aesthetics to them. Very similar color schemes, too. Stop you.
Because it's meant to be a destroyer for a German-based faction for a custom campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you'd mentioned that when you showed it to me. So let's see, you've got a couple cram pieces coming up, a big old cram shell, which being yellow, I think this would be a heat shell in From the Depths. Either that or a Hesh, maybe? Yeah. I love that you
Looks
have
like it should
the
fit.
cranks for sighting. That's amazing.
Did they
And
ever actually?
it's also got like a sight there too.
Yeah, yeah. Little telescope. That's great. Yeah, this kind of aesthetic is just something I'd never thought to do, and I loved it when I saw the victory class.
I believe someone was trying to ask a question.
Oh yeah, that was me saying if they ever actually used heat as against ships or reserve.
That would
for-
be pretty nasty doing it with cram, yeah.
I don't think, like in real life, I don't think he'd ever really caught on for ships because
Mm,
I mean, unless you're talking about missiles, which are using something similar,
No, just like guns.
like a heat shell. The problem with a lot of the terrestrial, let's call them, munitions versus boats is they they plink. That they can't get through the armor. They're not built for it, right? So it's one of those things where one of the matchups that Advanced Wars really gets right is when a medium tank rolls up to a battleship and attacks it with its main gun and does no damage. That's about right.
Sounds like a pain in the ass.
Yeah. They scratch the paint and leave a couple dents, and that's basically what you'd be encountering because naval shells are just. I mean, it's why like the KV-2 is using a small naval gun and firing a anti-bunker shell that's meant to pierce and detonate concrete at tanks, and it basically just immediately disables and/or obliterates them. So that's kind of the difference. And that naval cannon that's on the KV-2, if you're talking about like a proper cruiser or battleship, probably wouldn't pen.
I was thinking something like I don't know, like a 300 millimeter heat round.
No, I don't. I could be totally wrong, but I don't see how it would get through the armor. And if it did get through the armor, what is it going to do? We're not dealing with like a super confined tank crew who's really susceptible, and the parts are really susceptible to heat. Like, if you hit the side of this right here, and let's say, yeah, you got a jet of molten copper going right into empty space and more armor, and then onto the floor.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you can do, since the tank is a gun, it's one thing, because if you hit the tank, you hit the gun. A boat is a boat with guns on it, so unless you hit the gun, your heat shell's not going to do much. And if you do hit the gun's meant to take fire from, unbelievably large, high explosive shells, so you put a jet of molten copper into, I don't know, what what are you going to damage?
Crew, who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I think it would have caught on if it had any merit to it.
Yeah.
Now, missiles are another story. Like modern missiles that essentially use heat, HESH, that kind of thing to disable very specific points on ships. Yeah, that's a different story entirely. But as far as like tank rounds, nah, I don't think so. Could be wrong, but that's just my understanding of it.
Sound pretty correct, so I'll choose to believe you.
I aim for believable. So this was another kind of big French-inspired shape, I think. Similar hull, doesn't have the same torpedo blisters on the bottom. Less of a tumble-home design. Was definitely going for redundancy of small munitions. Had a lot of trouble with metal targets.
Yeah, these 8-inch guns, I was looking at the shelf for them a moment ago. Let me see if I can bring that back up. And this is for a 8-inch, good velocity. He's probably going to take up maybe 1 or 2 beams with this, so it's probably not as punchy as other designs.
Yeah. I recall, I think they wanted to go with pure kinetic on the 203s, and I talked them into including an HE warhead body because it had enough to go through 2 metal beams, and I was like, you might as well try to damage some components since you're going to be going through them, right? So I kind of talked them into adding this last HE warhead shell, but I think this is one of the fastest shells in the tournament. The 1500 meters a second is...
Yeah, that's pretty fast.
It's very fast. And their secondaries were pure HE,
Ludicrous
I think?
speed.
Yes.
Secondaries. I don't know if I would have done HE in like a 4-inch gun though. That's not going to really do a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1800 damage. What's fire rate on this sucker? 31. Yeah. The problem is that the main problem with this was that it was a big part of the aesthetic design and a big part of the theming was having a proper smaller destroyer class in here with smaller armaments, and it was going up against battleship hulls where its high explosive armaments aren't going to chew through the metal. It's got the same problem where these may as well be missiles up here, you know, and if they were missiles, because of how From the Depths work, they probably would have been more effective because missiles just get more HE damage and more frag damage in a smaller package. The downside being they cost a lot more armor and are more vulnerable. So yeah, I don't disagree. I love the aesthetic of it. I think it was a really fun idea to go for something that's really maneuverable and small and has a lot of redundancy. But when you're going up against a bunch of ironclads and battleships, and especially with the way accuracy in From the Depths is actually very good, even with crams, if we're going to be honest, compared to like hits versus misses when it comes to actual naval combat. So going for a destroyer class in a tournament where people are bringing battleships, you don't actually have the advantage of moving faster or being more maneuverable, because all the ships are going to be just as maneuverable and moving at the exact same speed, and they're going to be just as hard to hit because it's From the Depths. And it sucks, but it's true. You know, if you're going into a tournament with a 25 meter per second speed rule, most of the people are going to be right on it.
I like the compactness of his steam engine back here. Very, very tiny.
Yeah, I don't like it being midships like this, especially not with only, 3 layers of metal. It got taken out a couple of times, if I recall. You know, it didn't get taken out. No, that's not what happened. It was this. It was the drive shafts.
Yep. Too many moving parts.
Yep. Yeah, too many points of failure. This point of failure back here, I think this is actually where it got taken out. In the back, it's got a chamber where it's basically one metal beam and then one beam slope protecting a whole bunch of axis shifting drives, and like they don't have enough health for that. They just do not have enough health for that. Yeah, 400 health and 30 armor. His own explosive shell from one of his larger primaries here is enough to take...
Hey, Modus, how's it going? Sorry, old friend, haven't seen him in a while. Hope you're doing all right there.
No need to apologize, it's awesome.
BWI says, I suppose in FTD that most battles take place within about 2 kilometers? Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, 2's being generous. You really want to be close to like 1K unless you're using railguns.
Then you kind of want to be as far away as possible.
Yeah, I mean, even then, railguns, once you get... If you're moving at 2,000 meters a second, firing a railgun, it's still going to take the munition 1 second to get over there, so you're going to start having your inaccuracy play in. But, you know, if you're like sandblasters, get as far away from your opponents as possible. Go out to the edge of the map and sit there. Do we want to take a look at Dev's ship now, actually? Come to speak of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Much better. Okay, go ahead and spawn her in, please.
She's in.
Now this one.
Yeah. I'm glad that I wasn't the only one who remembered this tumble home hull actually being like part of a Onyx Watch ship at some point in the game's history. Dev said that this was in the hull prefabs, which still don't exist in my game actually. I'm one of the lucky few who has that
What?
weird bug where I don't have any of those prefabs available to me.
Really?
Really, really.
Like all of the prefabs, or just some?
I don't have the prefab like hulls and stuff, and most of the prefab guns actually are not in mine either. So I have basically just these basic ones that have been in the game for 6+ years, and nothing more. So if you look at like the
Is there supposed to be more advanced cannons? Because I have the exact same.
I can never tell, man. Some people when they open up their menus and they get like base or laser setups, it's like a big chunk, or yeah, but yeah. So I only have these hulls. I do actually have the tumble home over here.
BWI is like, wait, people just don't want to have prefabs? Not heard of that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've had the game for a long time and haven't like uninstalled and reinstalled it, for whatever reason, it won't include a lot of the additional prefabs and newer stuff. I don't know why.
So it looks like you went with 12-inch guns on this bad boy here.
He got the big ones. Well, let's see. So he's got 204s. I feel like I recall. Yeah, here's some 305s.
4-meter shells. Let's see what kind of shell he's got.
Oh, he's only got one 305. And the others are. Oh, and he also did this, which drove me nuts. You gotta set your required accuracy down to 0.1.
I've done that multiple times.
It's easy to forget. I don't even know why they have it defaulted at that. So
I think his main, they need a bit more velocity.
yes, I remember his thing was he has a lot of explosive damage and not a lot of kinetic damage. So these hit really shallow and then detonate. But I think they're actually at a danger zone where these will bounce.
Yeah, the AP on him looked like it was, 12 on the 305s?
Yeah, the 305 is 12 and the 240 is
240, you'd run about, 9
20.
inch?
I'm not sure. Oh no, 204. Sorry. The 204s have 20 AP, so they are much less likely to bounce. But again, this is enough to kill one metal beam, I think. Just barely. If it's stacked, I don't think it will. I could do the math on that. 1680 basically times...
Big old steam engine here. He did pretty good about spacing out his
Ooh.
ammo here.
This will do about... If it's a stacked metal beam, it won't kill it. Ouch.
Ouch.
It's really close, but it won't quite kill it. Because stacked metal is going to be 48 AP, so these shells are doing like 36% damage to them.
How much armor is on the side of this ship?
We can find that out real quick.
How much armor
Let's
does it have
see
on the side,
here.
you said?
1,
Yeah.
2.
It's pretty thick.
Jeez, wow.
Looks like about 5, effectively. Except
Well,
for
right about here where the turrets are, there's like
gaps.
maybe 3.
Well, so check this out. This is what I actually helped them fix. Go to the first turret in front of the bridge, and then right at the angled beam slopes, right underneath the deck, take a look at that. There is a hole where it's one beam slope, and then you're right in the turret. Right here.
Be a bit of a problem.
What's that, little curry?
Yeah, I said that could be a bit of a problem.
Open to-
Yeah, this This resulted in a lot of dead turrets here. I kept noticing it happen, and I went in to try to figure out what was going on. And
Yeah.
it's this gap here, this air gap, where they've got 1 meter of metal around their gun, and then a metal inverted corner blocking it. So yeah, the guns were vulnerable in a couple places.
Yeah, that
BW says a lot of work went into the ship having a proper citadel scheme. It has sloped internal plates covering the core, but some bits got bits, as we saw in practice.
Yes, yeah, I noticed that like your important bits, you've got at least 5 layers of metal. You've got some slopes in order to help with kinetic rounds. It was just like, I think you said that this wasn't part of the original hull, and you like added it on, and it's so easy to miss. Like, it took me a second. It's just this little gap here in the in this armor that kind of because it was right above the waterline too. It was like magnetic for shells to find those spots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was trying to say a second ago, that explains why the missiles were doing just a lot.
Yes, it's why your missiles were
Wait,
able to
like
like
one-
disable them in one volley.
I'm very sorry. I apologize.
I really like I liked the way the pontoons came out. They said they needed them for like flotation and stability, which ended up working out fantastically for them. But they also just look cool.
I like the little housing things that he did for the paddle wheels. That looks really good.
It does, yeah. I love the use of the steam pipe. Oh, he used actual steam pipes on it. They're not even deco.
Well, they're pretty
So-
cheap, so it's not that big a deal. I think it's like one material per however long you want to make it.
Yeah. I just
Stop me
like
if
it.
I'm wrong.
Yeah. I just like that it's physical. The only kind of downside is I feel like it actually needed a little bit more protection, these paddle wheels. They were popping.
Madu says it's a pretty good looking ship, and BWI says, yeah, the mounts on the sides with the secondary guns are added onto it, as is a rebuilt section around the paddle wheels.
Oh yeah.
So-
Like this is and it's one of the cooler looking parts of it. Like I just like this has a cool silhouette to it here. The way you've got this like 2/3 crescent moon or waxing moon here going into like these.
Ooh, yeah.
This almost looks like a pontoon you'd use for a what do you call a plane, like a plane that lands on the water.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw an ammo box pretty close to the outside of the ship. I mean, it was under the water line, but
Yeah, out
but
here.
it seemed like it was. Yeah. That doesn't
Like
seem
these
like a-
guys down here.
Yeah, I mean, even though it's below the water line, if somebody used a torpedo or something, it could be a
Yeah.
real problem.
I don't think they were expecting a lot of torpedoes, and then when this thing's in the water, it actually sits fairly low. So this would be like what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is like a 7 meter depth torpedo that would have to not hit the paddle and then hit midship. And unguided torpedoes hitting midship is, I'd say you'd be more in trouble putting your ammo towards the rear.
Yeah.
As we saw with the final bout with the Shichankin versus the Varangian, like the rear of your ship is going to get absolutely shredded by unguided torpedoes, but most of the rest of it's going to be okay.
It's not just you don't just need one torpedo to hit there. You need a lot.
Yeah, that too.
Yes.
Like there's you've got what 4 layers of metal here, so this is going to take torpedoes a second to burrow through because of the limits on them too. They were only mediums were restricted to I believe 3 meters.
Yep.
Yeah, so you got these stubby little suckers. Free internal space used for HE to have more fuel. That's an interesting one. I think I'd probably
Was
reverse
it-
that.
Was supercavitation allowed?
No.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could get some nasty supercavitation kinetic rounds. I think that's kind of the way you're going, wasn't it, Bob?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of like, in terms of the scope of this tournament, that ammo's in a great place. In terms of like outside of tournament, nah, it's vulnerable. Yeah.
All right. So, do we have any more entries that we want to look at?
I think that was actually it. We've run through them all now.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, BWI says, I like the idea of mounting them in the side at the back, but they just did nothing.
His torpedoes.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering what he was referencing to
I'm
there.
thinking he's probably talking about the torpedoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has another thing above it that says, if anything, I think the worst part of the ship is the torps.
Yeah. Torpedoes were hard. Torpedoes were really hard to get right because since these can't like they can't adjust their azimuth at all. You're
If you have them like on a turret,
Yeah.
and if you're using like a one turn, they're probably going to do all right.
oh, one turns were banned.
At, like close to medium range, but at long range, yeah, no way in hell.
Yeah. Yeah, one turns were banned too. They were pure dumbfire.
Yes, they were essentially Katusha rockets.
Yes, sir. Um, so basically, if you weren't aiming, so I see what he's saying. Yeah, putting the torpedoes at the rear of the craft like this on a solar craft versus other craft, you're firing out here, and basically, no matter where your aim point is looking, they're not going to hit. Yeah, so I think I see what he's getting at. You know, it would have been kind of fun. You could have put them on like a little sub object out here on these winglets, because this part of the ship tended to survive a lot. So you could just do something cute, like drop some mediums over here. And these probably would have actually been able to hit a lot of the time. Although, it looks a little bit... You're starting to get into my aesthetics when you do this kind of thing. Oh, you could have put them on top of your turrets.
Yeah, that could have worked.
Yeah, that actually would have looked kind of all right, too. Like, way here, towards in the back. Like, remove this metal block here.
Or you can do these superior build pontoons and stick them
Yes,
on there.
you could have
Just
battle
saying.
pontoons. I think...
Uh,
yeah, you could have little
Honestly,
torpedo
they're-
hats.
And there you go.
I love it.
I mean, it doesn't look awful, and it would already be pointing at the enemy at the aim point, just like with Fish's. And Fish had some of the most reliably hitting missiles in the tournament. So I mean, in terms of wanting to hit someone, I think this would have worked out all right.
And also just deco them if you really just don't like how they look.
Yeah, I mean, and if you don't want to deco them, you could just do like the one time the metal plates would look kind of all right would just be kind of running down the sides of this on top of this, kind of a little hat.
If he was worried about the cost, he probably could have gotten rid of some of these 94 millimeter guns and just added a bunch of torpedoes.
Yeah, there are 6. I mean, yeah, I think the torpedoes would have been. Yeah, it's just one of those hindsight things, in practice watching people in the tournament.